The history of monocycles, from the very first to the most promising. A monocycle is a vehicle with one wheel. It is sometimes referred to as a unicycle. But now it's not even about him, but about the introcycle. An introcycle is usually referred to as a motorized vehicle in which a passenger or passengers sit inside a huge wheel. Rousseau, an inventor from Marseille, introduced his monocycle in 1869. It was the time of the bicycle boom, when engineers experimented with the shape and number of wheels, trying to find the most efficient way to move. Unlike conventional penny-farthing bicycles of the time, Rousseau's monocycle offered a radical idea: to place the driver inside the wheel rather than above it. The device aroused great interest in the press and at exhibitions, becoming the prototype for hundreds of subsequent monocycle designs, including modern motorized versions. The design of the Rousseau monocycle was based on the principle of internal rolling. The outer wheel, a huge rim that was in direct contact with the road. It was usually made of wood with an iron or steel rim. Inner frame. Inside the large wheel, there was a rigid frame on which the seat, pedals, and steering gear were mounted. Roller system. The frame was held inside the outer wheel by several rollers or pulleys that rolled along the inner groove of the large rim. Drive. The rider pedaled, which set the rollers in motion through a direct transmission or chain. The friction between the rollers and the inner edge of the large wheel caused the latter to rotate, pushing the device forward. Steering. The turn was carried out by tilting the rider's body to the left or right, as well as using a small steering wheel that shifted the center of gravity of the inner frame. The Rousseau monocycle was an impressive structure, as its diameter had to exceed the height of a seated person. Wheel diameter was about 2.5 meters. Weight. The exact data varies, but due to the use of heavy wood and wrought iron, the structure weighed more than 50 to 60 kilograms, which made it inert and difficult to control. Speed. Despite the huge size of the wheel, due to friction losses and the difficulty of balancing, the operating speed rarely exceeded 10 to 12 km/h. Despite its originality, the Rousseau monocycle had three fundamental flaws. The hamster effect. If braking or acceleration was too sudden, the inner frame, along with the rider, began to rotate inside the wheel, like a hamster in a drum. Overview. The large frame and spokes often blocked the driver's view. Stability. It was extremely difficult to maintain balance on one point of support when stopping. The rider had to quickly put his feet on the ground. The monocycle was patented by Richard C. Hemming in New Haven, Connecticut, in 1869, U.S. patent number 95570. Hemming believed that a large diameter wheel would make it easier to overcome road bumps and reach high speeds with the same pedaling effort. In the press of that time, he was often referred to as the Flying Dutchman. The Hemming design was revolutionary for its time, although it had serious control flaws. Outer rim, a huge driving wheel that was in direct contact with the road. It had a groove on the inside. Inside the large wheel was a fixed frame. It was held in place by small roller wheels that rolled along the inner groove of the main rim. Drive. The rider sat on a saddle mounted on an inner frame and pedaled. The pedals were connected to a central drive wheel, which rotated the main outer rim through a friction system or gear train. Control. It was carried out by tilting the body to the sides or using a manual lever, which slightly shifted the center of gravity or slowed down one of the sides. The exact dimensions could vary, as many copies were built artisanal, but patent drawings and preserved replicas give the following figures. The diameter of the outer wheel was usually between 1.8 and 2.4 meters. It was necessary for an adult to fit inside. Width, about 50 to 60 centimeters. Weight, due to the use of wood and wrought iron, the structure was massive, from 40 to 70 kilograms. Materials, the rim was made of wood with an iron bus bar. The frame was made of iron. Despite its futuristic appearance, the Hemming monocycle did not become widespread for a number of reasons. The effect of gerbling, when braking or accelerating sharply, The rider began to rotate inside the wheel along with the frame, like a hamster in a wheel, making a dead loop. Overview. The outer rim and frame were often directly in front of the driver's eyes, making it difficult to see the road. Stability. At low speeds, the vehicle was extremely unstable and required acrobatic skills from the rider to maintain balance. Dirt. All the dust and dirt from the outer wheel flew straight at the driver inside. The Hemming monocycle became the prototype for all subsequent monocycles, including modern motorized versions. Today, the original drawings from 1869 are considered classics of 19th century engineering, demonstrating the courage of the inventors of the Victorian era. The second patent was a design by Greene and Elisha Dyer. Such designs had a number of significant disadvantages related to balancing. The appearance and spread of the classic two-wheeled, chain-driven bicycle scheme stopped the development of monocycles. Nevertheless, such constructions continued to appear. The construction of Gautier, 1881, and the Harper's 1892 design. In the book Victorian Inventions, Inventions of the Victorian Era, there's another monocycle produced in 1884. The driver was sitting, as it were, in a cage of spokes. The rim probably opened into two parts for access inside. The first motorized monocycle appeared only in 1904. It was Garavaglia's Italian car. The driver sits in a comfortable armchair with the steering wheel in his hand, and there's a small support wheel to the side. Wheel diameter. The monocycle had an impressive diameter of about 2 meters. Location of the driver and engine. The driver and the engine were located inside a large wheel on a fixed frame. The principle of movement. A large wheel rolled around this internal fixed structure. The drive was carried out using an engine gear that engaged with the toothed inner rim of the tire. Model 1904, equipped with a single-cylinder gasoline engine with belt drive. With a wheel diameter of 2 meters, it was capable of reaching speeds comparable to early motorcycles of the time. Approximately 30 to 40 kilometers h, which was already considered an achievement for such a design. Success. At the 1904 Milan exhibition, the Garavaglia monocycle was hailed as a real success and a technical curiosity, although it did not receive widespread practical use as the main mode of transport, giving way to conventional motorcycles. This monocycle was part of a wave of experiments with unicycle transport in the early 20th century, when inventors saw in it the potential for high speed and efficiency. Monowheel Edison-Puton. Erich Edison-Puton is a French engineer and inventor who worked in Paris at the beginning of the 20th century. This first monowheel with electric drive inspired Anton Wallner, a technically gifted craftsman from Bavaria in Germany, to create a similar example. It is powered by a Swiss MAG engine with a volume of 348 cubic centimeters produced in 1930, which drives the wheel through a vintage earth gearbox. Tony Wallner became a very skilled driver and even held the unicycle speed record for a while. He repeatedly demonstrated his abilities and became quite famous. In the following years, his monowheel was exhibited in the museum, and it is still in excellent working condition. Pay attention to the brake pads. They are indispensable when trying to ride. In the 70s, Wallner and his wheel were featured in the famous German Rudi Carroll show. They challenged the then-modern BMW and Kawasaki at the famous Nürburgring racetrack. It's interesting to watch. A few years later, Alfred Darling, also from St. Louis, built a screw unicycle that appeared on the cover of Popular Mechanics magazine in 1914. Its design has a front-pulling screw mounted directly on the engine, which can be turned by the steering mechanism. The steering engine mechanism is mounted on the chassis frame and acts as a weight balance for the driver. The driver sits quite high off the ground and almost vertically to prevent the effect of gerbling. Two small wheels are installed at the back and spike stops at the front, which also serve to protect the propeller blades. But the front spikes pose a risk of an accident if they tilt sharply while driving. In the 20s and 30s, several more advanced motorized monocycles appeared, which can actually be called one-wheeled motorcycles. One of them was produced in the mid-1920s by the Italian company Motorized in limited quantities. According to the advertisement, this car had a 175 cubic centimeters engine, a 3-speed gearbox. A Swiss engineer named Gerd made a rather large trip from Switzerland to Spain in 1931 on such a Motorized monomotor. Dynosphere. Perhaps the most interesting device is the one called Dynosphere by the authors. Obviously, the creators themselves were afraid of the enormity of their creation. Taking into account the too low stability of most single-wheeled units, remember how you rode in truck tires as a child, they did not find a better solution than to use the widest possible load-bearing frame for its construction. A huge wheel about 3 meters high, inside of which a cab with a driver and an engine was located on special rails. There was a project to place a cabin for 5 people inside the wheel. The latter reached speeds of up to 40 to 48 kilometers h. Apparently, the designers managed to achieve stability, but there were clearly problems with handling. Look at the tense face of the driver who is trying to turn this machine. Under the headline, The New Horror of the Road, in February 1923 in the magazine Everyday Science and Radio News, and Popular Scince posted a message about the next monocycle. On the cover was a monstrous-looking monocycle by Professor Christie. According to the description, it was a machine with a 14-foot diameter center wheel and smaller gyroscopic wheels on the sides, weighing about 500 pounds each. In 1930, the world saw the Monowheel Tank project, which was never implemented. There was even a monobus project shown in 1935. Naturally, it didn't go beyond the drawings. Since 1867 and up to the present, about 40 major projects of monocycles, vehicles with one, will have been registered and patented. Some designs were so ingenious from a technical point of view that it is not possible to implement them even now. And only a few monocycle designs were destined to be released. One of them, embodied in the hardware, was the Edison-Puton monowheel, which was built in 1910 in France. And this is a modern design. 47-year-old Kerry McLean started small. His first monocycle, assembled on the basis of a tractor wheel and equipped with a 40-horsepower water-cooled gasoline engine, had an internal diameter of only about 90 centimeters. Nevertheless, this device became the first monocycle that accelerated to 100 kilometers h and which was registered by the Michigan State Police. The design turned out to be so successful that McLean even founded his own company, McLean Wheel, and designed a less powerful, but quite commercial model based on a record prototype, which, after paying only $8,500, can be purchased by every fan of extreme driving. Of course, the American did not stop there and build a couple more units, now equipped with a V-shaped figure 8 from a Buick car, the McLean V8 and the McLean V8 Rocket Roadster, which looks more like a small but evil helicopter. Designer Ben Wilson presented his version of a unicycle at the Man of the 21st Century exhibition in Tokyo. The exhibition was supposed to solve those problems that were not solved in previous centuries, and Ben's bike is fully suitable for the conditions of the exhibition. I understand that humanity will not switch to unicycles all at once instead of the old, two-wheeled ones. Rather, my invention proves that a person can solve any task he or she undertakes, says Ben. The prototype uses a blind gear, without which proper balancing is impossible. And that's how elegantly the Italians do it. And it seems to be from Russia. But how is it possible to drive in the snow? But there are even more original designs. For example, this RIOT wheel with a hefty wheel, which is made in the style of the post-apocalypse. Notice where the pilot is sitting. One Spaniard, who is interested in the history of bicycles, decided to recreate a monocycle model from 1873. To do this, he studied a lot of information and documents from the 19th century. And using the technologies of those times, he was able to make his dream come true by creating his stunning masterpiece, an exact replica of the 1873 monocycle invented in France.